Support Three Beards Media, and I would love to work with you. If you need merchandise for your company, organization, band, softball team, whatever, I can help. From name brand apparel to promotional items, large orders or small, online stores, and more, I can help your brand stand out. AKC Marketing is local, based in Johnston, and we are an employee-owned business, so our costs are low and our turnaround times are fast. But most importantly, we give you personal service to make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. Email me at andrew@akcmarketing.com or find me on social media, and let's make some cool stuff together. Now sit back and enjoy this Three Beards Media podcast.
Making great tasting bourbon requires the perfect combination of ingredients, conditions, and time. The longer it rests, the better it tastes. Revelton Distillery's new single barrel bourbon is made from 80% corn, sourced 100% from Iowa farmers. And unlike mass-produced bourbons, each barrel of Revelton's single barrel bourbon is unique, proofed on when it tastes best. As they like to say, it'll be ready when it's ready. And to ensure the highest standards of quality and flavor, owners Rob and Christy Taylor oversee the production and bottling. Every single barrel. Iowa-born, Iowa-aged, Iowa-bottled. Try the new single barrel bourbon from Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com.
In 2023, a crack Green Beret named Dan Douglas retired his military command and promptly escaped to a full-time career in real estate. Today, this man is wanted by home buyers and sellers who want to survive the process without spending a fortune. If you have a home to sell or want to buy one, maybe you can hire Dan Douglas at Green Beret Realty. You can find him at greenberetrealty.com. greenberetrealty.com.
Hey, welcome everybody to a new episode of False Starts with Bill Blank and Chris Shipley. I'm your host, Chris, joined as always by Bill, broadcasting from the AKC Andrew Downs Marketing Studio and sponsored by Revelton Distilling Company and Green Beret Realty. Billy, what's up this evening?
I think I need to hit Andrew up for some upgrades in the studio.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, since it's the AKC, since it's his, since he's sponsoring the studio.
That's right.
Studio. I mean, I could use, I don't know, maybe a new microphone, maybe like one of those little, I need a little arm thing, a little jib arm thing like you got,
We can hook you up. We can use
Make
some
me
of
look
Andrew's.
more professional.
We can use some of Andrew's marketing spend and purchase you a new microphone for God's sakes.
I'm just kidding. The microphone's fine.
We're 2 years in on this podcast. I think we're going to stick around.
You think so? I don't know, man. I get a little worried. We get those 5 downloads, and that keeps me up at night.
We're getting more than 5.
I don't know. You're the analytic. You're the one that sees all that shit. You don't really say much. Sometimes you'll email me or text me or something and be like, that episode da 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 da. But like, I don't know. Consistent thing.
When I was at that Iowa Podcast Awards, that was one of the things they said. I think one of the jokes is if you're in podcasting, then you are definitely a stat whore. And it, like, raise your hand if you went and checked your downloads and your numbers more than 5 times this week or something like that. And I was right. It's totally me. Like it's an obsession with me. Numbers are an obsession with me. So,
how was that, by the way? You went to the award ceremony.
You know what? The award ceremony was pretty cool. It was fun. I got to interact with some people, meet some people. I had quite a few people come up to me and tell me how much they liked our content. And I don't know that was bullshitting because they specifically named the pod and knew my name and whatever. So
right on.
That was really cool. I think next year, if they do it again, I'm probably going to go to the sessions during the day because there was a lot of networking that was going on, a lot of workshops, and I think that there's a lot of things that we could do to improve
Gotcha.
and learn from people. I did get asked to be a panelist on one of those. I just couldn't swing it with the time frame because the panelist was at 1:00, and then I'd have sat in Cedar Rapids for 5 hours before the event, and God knows there's nothing to do in Cedar Rapids.
You could have went to the Quaker factory. And
not on a Sunday. Quakers are closed on Sunday.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Those Quakers keep that money rolling in, so all of a sudden they don't seem to be so Quakery.
That's right.
When the bottom line changes, isn't that strange? How that works? So we didn't win. Who won the best wellness podcast? Who won?
Beautiful View, which I happened to run into them and meet them before the ceremony started. They are digital content creators that initiated in Texas, and they do a lot of side work for a bunch of other companies, and then had decided to launch this podcast on their own. So, I listened to a little bit of it. It's really good. But I don't know. I'm jealous. I think that we have a lot of fun. And I told Stacey, I said, it's kind of like the Tom Brady effect. Now I want to win. It's just motivated me more to improve and to work harder because I want to win those awards.
I thought it was an Iowa thing. They're not from Iowa?
They live in Iowa and they're based in Iowa.
Gotcha.
But they do a lot of work for people in Texas.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then they had decided to do a podcast here in Iowa.
Gotcha.
On their own. So,
right on. Well, congratulations to them. Between now and next year, we'll figure out some way to sabotage their shit. Maybe we'll go like the Trump route and just start. Maybe that's it. Those guys are eating cats.
Yes,
dogs.
That's what they're doing.
What was
Cedar
the name
Rapids, they're eating the dogs.
Yeah, in Cedar, the relationship podcasters in Cedar Rapids are eating dogs and cats. Let's get the ball rolling on that.
There you go. Beautiful View podcast series is what it is.
Beautiful View. What do they talk about?
They look at opportunities in life to see a beautiful view. On the show, they talk about our adventures of full-time RVing with our kids around the country. We also talk about our transition to living in a house in the community of Bellevue, Iowa. This is a podcast about raising children, marriage, family, friends, community, and faith. We hope to inspire and encourage our listeners as we share pieces of our story in an engaging way.
Fuck. So they're like, me and Aiden and Caden and Braden talked about God this morning as we left our RV and we made our clothes out of denim. And we all washed our hair today and we put it up in a bun. Or am I wrong?
No. That pretty much describes him.
Oh, fuck me. That's what we lost to?
Yeah. They're also, he's British and she's from Texas. So.
Well, then I know it's bullshit because ain't nothing from Texas but steers and queers, son. You don't look much like a steer.
All right, well.
So like big time God squatters then?
I don't know. I didn't listen to a full episode, so.
Right on.
So.
Well, sounds to me like we got fucked, Chris.
I think we did. Absolutely. Now, I will tell you, one of our pods from Three Beards Media did get the fourth most votes in the People's Choice Awards.
Who were the voters, by the way?
So the voters for the actual nominated awards for categories, they sent these podcasts out to different industry leaders across the country. So it wasn't just the people on the awards committee. They didn't do any of the judging. Gotcha. They had, I think they said 20 to 25 different industry leaders or industry people across the country listen to the podcast and then give their ratings and then vote for.
How many people were in our category?
5 that made the nominees, but from what I understood, there was 40 submissions for that particular podcast.
Oh, category. Nice. Well, so, that's good.
Yeah.
And where did we? Did they say where we placed, or
they did not? They just gave the winner. Now in the People's
Okay, so we got
Awards,
second. We got second.
We got second. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
That's what I heard. I heard some inside information. They're talking about it a lot around Cedar Rapids. I got a buddy that lives in Cedar Rapids, and they're talking about it a lot in CR. He told me, and he said that
CR
it was very close. That we actually lost by 1 vote, and the deciding vote turns out was the Lord. So we
only could have reached a higher demographic of those.
Yeah. And I'll take the blame for that. You know, I don't think God likes me to talk about eating shrooms to better my mental health.
I'm sure he doesn't.
Could we have been further apart? That's hilarious. Like,
I know, right?
I'm gonna have to look their podcast up and just see, like, you know, relation. I mean, so this is a couple. This is a husband and wife.
The husband and wife. Yep.
Oh, that's why. I mean, that people love that fucking shit. Like the fake first lady stuff, you know, that everybody wants their own, like, it's like what Facebook is, you know what I mean? Like everybody acts like they're the perfect couple on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
And like, that's like the new thing too. Like I remember taking my ex-wife to a John Legend concert, and like he started talking about his wife, whatever her name
Chrissy Teigen.
Yeah, see? Everybody knows who these motherfuckers are married to now. Like, nobody ever gave a shit about that before. And so now they do it's like they're the president and the first lady. Everybody puts this image out of
I guarantee you they have
couple. You know what I mean?
I guarantee you they have a joint Facebook account.
Oh, 100%. Nothing says insecurity like a joint Facebook account.
Joint Facebook account means either somebody cheated or somebody's not trustworthy. That's what that means.
Or there's no secrets amongst us and the Lord.
Right.
I just feel like we're not ever going to compete with the Lord, Chris.
Yeah, we will. We can. There's a
you think we can?
I think we
can. Should we sell our soul? Should we sell our soul to the devil to win the next Iowa Podcast Association?
I don't know that I'm comfortable
Relationship and Wellness Podcast Award.
I'm not sure I'm willing to go that far.
Do you think we gained listeners amongst the judges?
We're gonna see. We'll see.
Like I'm waiting for somebody to somebody comments right now. Hey, I listened and they are just better than you, you fuckhead. Why don't you go blame the refs like you do all the time? That's what I'm doing essentially right now. Is I'm blaming the refs for us losing this.
That's right, because it can't be us.
There's no way it's us. We're fucking infallible, perfect.
100%.
Apparently, though, not as perfect as the Lord.
Or a beautiful view.
Well, they have a beautiful view of the Lord, and I can fucking, dude. I feel like I'm being kind of an asshole, but I'm also, just trying to be funny. Like I'm not. I hope people don't think I'm literally just lambasting this other fucking podcast.
Listen, people, if they do, then they haven't listened to this show.
But I do feel like I haven't heard anything. You just described it to me, and that's what I feel like. I feel like it is like, you know, like what was remember the sweaty balls episode, the sweaty
SNL,
balls?
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like this is that show. Like it's Anna Gasteyer and Molly Chandler. Hello, everybody. Today we were on. We decided to go to Chester Park in the RV, and we missed church. We missed our normal fellowship back home in Cedar Rapids. We found a church near Chester Park. It was actually a truck stop. It was a truck stop in truck stop. I think it was called a Flying J. Flying J. We thought flying wings, angels. Let's go to the Flying J. And they happened to have a sermon in the back of a dry van trailer. They apparently take these from truck stop to truck stop, and it's a really good lesson for the kids, for Aiden, Jaden, and Braden, because we all went inside of the trailer.
I've completely lost it.
While we were in the trailer, a couple of lot lizards walked in. They sat next to us. It was a good lesson because we've been trying to tell them how Jesus walked with the hookers. And, lot lizard was a new thing for them. They hadn't heard the term. Man, we explained to them that these are women that Jesus would take under his wing. Lack of teeth means a lot of pleasure for these truck drivers, and so God bless the lot lizards, and that's our lesson. We now have a beautiful view of the truck stop. Is that? You think that's about right?
Oh, I think that's right. Jesus Christ. Okay. I need another break.
I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
We should do our actual.
I'm moving up the list for that. Oh, my God. Okay. This is the awkward part of the show where we introduce our guest, who, by the way, is on the pod that finished 4th in the People's Choice Award in voting. So,
yeah, I'm not buying that shit.
That's what they said. That's what they said. So, but we're welcome. We're gonna welcome our latest guest here. I've been wanting to bring one of these guys on to meet with Bill, because Bill absolutely hates refs and is pretty sure that they're the downgrade of society. And Ben Applegate, who is a basketball official for the Iowa High School Athletic Association, has a podcast about his time as a referee with his 3 buddies. And I just thought it would be really cool to bring them on, let them interact a little bit. Let's let one learn from the other. But then also, I think there's a lot of pressure on guys.
What the fuck's he supposed to learn from me? What's he going to learn from me?
That fans are passionate for a reason, and I don't know.
No, see, he's got a different. Let me get through this and bring him on. Bring him on.
All right. So with that, in the worst transition I've ever had in my entire life, I bring on Bill Applegate from 3 Blind Refs. Ben, welcome to False Starts, I guess.
You know, this has been fantastic already listening to you guys kind of get going here. And I kind of feel like maybe we should talk about the sweaty balls a little bit.
Yeah, Ben, I think it would be good for you to have some fellowship with Flying J. I think that right after the song, we're all going to get some biscuits and gravy. We're going to sit down and we'll break bread together.
Oh, that's good stuff. I love it.
Aiden, Braden, and Caden have signed up for tournament ball this year, and I've had to tell Dad to tone it down a little bit. The refs aren't gonna like him.
We're just really excited to see them participate and really show their love for the game.
Yeah. Because the Lord will always. They're going to have those fucking kids that did the commercial where they go, "It was out on me, coach." I would kick that kid off my team so fucking fast.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, we have to get one thing straight when it comes to my hatred of officials. But first and foremost, see, Ben is a high school official. Okay.
Yes.
Completely different than my hatred for big time college and professional officiating. High school, it's a completely different animal. While I think that there are several red flags amongst the personality types, I think that they are still at least suppressing the full on sociopath mode. Like I guess in high school, I feel like a referee is somewhat more of an authority figure in high school sports because those are kids, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
we can argue that point. I would say probably in the past that was true, but as we've progressed, I don't know if progressed is the right term, but as we've come along as a humanity, I feel like kids don't care if I'm there or not, if that makes sense, or if an official is there. And I would even say probably teachers, principals, superintendents all have that kind of struggle daily of trying to teach or whatever these kids these days. So,
well, my thing is like from a like professional collegiate level, my problem with referees at the collegiate and professional level is the same problem I have with cops. Like you're not in charge. You're not my fucking dad. Like you don't get to make emotional decisions. Like a great example for me, and this is what I'm saying about the difference. Like if to me, if a high school kid comes up to you at a game and is like yelling at you, like that's a fucking foul. Like that's probably going to get him that's probably going to get a kid teed up, right? He's 15, 16 years old. That's different. You know what I'm saying?
Fair. Yep.
But like when a dude in like the Kansas City Chiefs game, the Bengals Chiefs game I was watching a couple weeks ago, right? I am not a fan of either team. I did not bet on the game, okay? So just get that out in the open. I think the Bengals got fucked at the end of that game because there was a play where Chase got kind of bent in half. It's arguable. I think he felt like it was one of those hip drop tackles or something, but like kind of almost got bent in half. He's pissed off that there wasn't a flag thrown, right? Now, this is professional football. This is a passionate, violent game. Dudes play with a lot of emotion, anger, you name it, right? He wants a flag. The ref doesn't throw one. So he's yelling at the ref that it should be a flag, right? Yep. The ref walks by. I'm almost 100% positive the ref walked by and told him to shut the fuck up or something. I'm almost positive that's what happened. But you can't say that, right? So let's just for argument's sake say that he said nothing. He just walked by. And the reason I think he said something is because all of a sudden Chase was walking by him going back towards the huddle. And then all of a sudden he changed direction and went at him again. So that makes me think that the ref said some shit to him that he wouldn't say to him otherwise, like say at a bar, right? So that's my issue, right? So then Chase goes after him yelling about the flag. Dude throws a flag on Chase for unsportsmanlike conduct, costs him 15 yards, pretty comes close to costing him the game the rest of the way, right? To me, that's a bullshit flag. I don't care if he told him his mom's a whore and he threatened to murder his fucking firstborn child. I don't care what he says to you. You don't hear anything. You walk over. You do not influence the game because of your emotional. You don't get to talk to me like that. I'm the referee. You can't talk to me like that. That's fucking bullshit. You're not competing. You don't get to influence the game like that.
Okay, I'm going to give you my side of that. And you're talking when you don't like officials. Are you mostly football, Bill, or would you say basketball as well?
I would say basketball and football both. I'm not a big fan of umpires either.
Okay,
but I do I'm loving the electronic strike zone.
Yeah,
my biggest thing on its surface, honestly, a lot of it, like right now. A lot of it's just a bit. Like I like to, because I'm a huge Hawkeye fan, I like to, instead of talking shit about the team or anything, I just blame everything on the refs no matter what. Like I just find a way, and I do it on purpose. Some people get it, some people don't. But
the majority of them don't.
Yeah, a lot of them don't. Every time I say something, I do get comments, and I think it's hilarious. But all in all, I wish we could eliminate the human element of officiating. Like, I wish there was a way for that to be perfect, and I know there isn't. And I also know I'm not some idiot that thinks that the refs care who wins the game, because I don't. I don't think that any referee goes into the game with a bias for one team or the other. What I think happens is, as human beings, they're emotional, and they will make emotional decisions that will affect the game, and I don't like that.
Yep. So I think let's go back to the Jamar Chase deal, and I watched that game too. I think there's a different leash depending on the level you're at, right? So to your point earlier, high school, my leash is probably going to be shorter if a kid comes up to me and says that was a fucking terrible call.
Right.
Probably from a high schooler, I'm going to whack him right away.
Yeah.
I'm assuming at the NFL level, and I have a client that's an NFL official, and I will ask him this. But I assume there's
sorry,
what do you mean client?
Hold on. How come he's not been on a pod yet?
He can't be.
Oh.
Yeah, they probably can't.
Yeah.
A client meaning what?
I'm a CPA, so he's a tax client.
So you do his taxes. Oh, okay. Well, let's get into this.
No. So Jamar Chase. No.
I'm just joking. Go ahead.
So
how much did he claim from what was his 1099 from DraftKings? What'd that look like? Go ahead, sorry.
That's a whole nother podcast. So I guess the leash probably in the NFL and the NBA is a lot longer because even MLB, right? Because when somebody bitches you, they're probably like, that's a shitty call. And I think an official at that level is probably taking that and we're going to have an intelligent conversation about this and you can scream at me. But I think to your point, there is some humanity in that, some emotions in that. And the more that I get yelled at during a game, the more that might affect me without me actually knowing that, right? I mean, we're all human. We try to be as professional and straight down the line as far as black and white on our calls, right?
Right.
But you're right. We're humans. And if you dig at me and dig at me and dig at me, I'm probably going to unleash a little bit on you at some point. And my guess is that's kind of what happened. And it may not have even been Jamar earlier in the game. It might have been another Bengals player, right? I'm guessing in an NFL game, you have 22 players barking at you pretty much every single play.
Yeah.
On top of 15 coaches per sideline, right? So it's probably a shit show out there as far as that's concerned. So there must be a magic word, and usually you is the magic word. You suck or you are terrible. That must have got thrown in that case, and he must have said, Jamar, that's it. You're done. And when he came back, there it went. So that's what my perception of that play was.
I think you're probably right, except for I feel well. You know what? Everybody's mic'd up now, so you may be right. Like the ref's probably aware and cognizant that someone can probably hear what he says. I don't know, but like I can see, like I can read body language. I can see that confrontational body language when a guy like when you somebody argues a call and the dude just right away, just like I said, like talks to you like he's a cop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's I can't stand. I have a problem with authority. That's part of my therapy.
There's a lot of different personalities to that point, Bill.
Yeah.
But I think most officials are probably type A.
Yeah. And so like my problem with authority isn't with authority that, like, I don't know. I guess maybe outside of my dad, nobody gets to tell me what to do. Like, it's a weird kind of this weird thing that I mean, maybe it's not weird. I'm just trying to think of other times in my life where, you know, I respected my coaches. Like my high school baseball coach was like my dude, you know. I would have taken a shit on third base if he told me to and not even asked a question. So it's not like I have this problem with authority as a whole. I have a problem with perceived authority or authority that I don't think deserves to be authority.
Yeah.
So like whether it's a referee or a cop or a teacher, like I don't feel like people get to talk to me as if they're authority over me when they're not.
Yep.
And you'll see clips like an NBA clip of a guy. I remember this really old one. It was a Larry Bird, like one of those old Sports Illustrated videos or whatever that they'd put out if you got a subscription. And I remember Larry Bird like coming up the court and the ref going like, "Stop crying and play the game, you big baby." I just remember that being in there, right? And so like that's very minor, obviously. But I can see these guys like on TV. Like I remember Rasheed Wallace getting teed up all the time, and you could see the ref just waiting for there to be a problem, and then you can see his body language, knowing that if it's almost like they're baiting him into it, because if that referee was at a club after the game and talked to Rasheed Wallace like that, he would beat him within an inch of his life.
Yep.
And so that shit drives me crazy. Like, no, you don't get to put that shirt on and talk to me like you can whoop my ass.
I think I agree. I agree with what you're saying there, especially with the bar and Rasheed and all that.
Yeah.
I think the thing to keep in mind is there's a limited number of officials, even at the NFL, NBA, MLB level, that are pretty much doing that every year. I mean, a few get in every year, right? And maybe a couple retire, but it's a lot of times I would say it's probably upwards of 75, 80% are staying in the league annually. So you have individuals that are officiating that have been doing games for 5, 10, 20 years, and they know everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think officiating, which we kind of bring with our podcast, is trying to show the personality side of it. It's not just always black and white. I think you probably have relationships, both positive and negative, over that amount of time and those amount of games. So I'm certain that official that night, that referee that night, has probably dealt with Jamar Chase before.
Mm-hmm.
And like it or not, again, back to we're all humans. Some of those can be positive and some of them can be negative. And maybe him and Jamar just don't get along. And he might have said, "Shut the fuck up." And that might have been the switch, right? And that was that. So
yeah. That's what I feel like there needs to be. And maybe you know this, maybe there is there, like, there needs to be accountability for referees in those situations. It's my understanding also that in order to, I don't know if this is just a rumor or what, but I've heard that in order to be an NFL referee, you have to already have like a 6-figure job doing something else.
I don't know if that's a requirement, but it's certainly generally the norm. Think of Eddie Hightower. He was a superintendent at a big Chicago school.
Yes. Talk about
yeah. Sorry to bring him up as a Hawkeye fan.
No, I'm just go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But to your point, there's not very many officials that are just full-time officials, right? We all have lives and jobs. And especially if you're probably making 6 digits, then you have probably a pretty stressful job, I'm guessing, and you have to make some major decisions. And so that's another thing that you bring to the field or the court every night is your life, your personal life, your job life, all of those things. and being a human, it's a lot to deal with night in and night out. So I get it. I mean, there's nights when I go out there and have a great night, and there's others when I have a shit day at work. I walk out there and I'm like, I have never reffed so poorly in my life. And it's the relationships, my partners being like, nah, you weren't that bad. You know what I mean? So I think that's the thing that's going to be hard to get rid of in the games, except for MLB a little bit with, the computer calling the strikes and balls. I think that's where you can take a lot of that.
Tremendously. It's too bad that you can't do that with other sports.
Right. And I don't know how you would.
Yeah. I mean, there's, with football, as far as spotting the ball and stuff like that, that's come a long way and you can do that, but it's not like you can call pass interference, yay or nay in the moment somehow. Like, it just feels impossible. But see, that brings up one of my things right there. Like Eddie Hightower, for example, a guy who was a superintendent of a school district, right?
Yep.
And then refereed Division I college basketball.
Had his own jet so he could go fly wherever he needed to that night.
Oh, this is not helping. Had his own jet.
But think about it. If you're sitting in Chicago and not going to get out to...
How many jets did his bookie have? Is my question. So, jets, right? Whatever. Fucking... But this is my thing. You're a superintendent of a school district. Does that not throw up a red flag to anyone that this man is constantly seeking positions of authority? Like, that to me, it's a huge turnoff for me. Like, you ever have somebody that at work, like when you had a boss, right, or whatever, and there'd be, there's different levels. Like maybe there's you work in an office full of cubicles, and there's your like immediate supervisor, and then there's the one above them and the one above them, right? And there's all kinds of people that are kind of laterally in those positions.
Yep.
And you can just see amongst those people the ones that really enjoy being in charge.
Yep.
You can just tell it fucking drips off of them. Those people are people that I don't like.
But I said that earlier. I would say most officials are kind of alpha personalities because you don't want to be this shy, quiet, nonchalant individual reffing a basketball game with Coach Krzyzewski out there or something like that.
Yeah,
it's just not going to work very well.
Yeah, but do you not see, like, this is, again, I'm going to bring up cops. Type A, Coach Krzyzewski's type A, ref type A. Graham McCaffrey type A, ref type A. Cop type A, criminal type A. Somebody's got to de-escalate. There has to be, cops are supposed to de-escalate, not escalate. So maybe we should start vetting our officials away from that type A personality a little bit. I mean, yes, you got to be able to stand your ground. I understand you got to make a call and you got to stick with it, right? to make it simple. But I don't think that works well. That's why you end up with those situations where Fran's staring that fucking guy down. And yes, like, that's how you end up with shit like that.
Yep. So, okay, let me go back to the high school thing a little bit here. In high school, for the most part, I'm going with a crew that I'm familiar with and probably work with most of the time, right? In college and NBA and NFL, for the most part, you're going as an individual. And so a lot of those times you're going to be with, on an NFL crew, I don't even remember how many it is. Is it 10 of them, 8 of them? Type A individuals all going together. With me and my crew, we have the opportunity, since we work together all the time, we know each other really well. There might be a good cop, bad cop type thing going on that night. So if one of my partners is having a struggle with a coach, And sometimes this happens, right? All the calls come to you. I'm like, God, I can't get away from the game right now.
Yeah.
It takes your partner who knows you really well to come in there and be like, hey, had a bad day at work. Like, talk to the coach and try to de-escalate. And I think that's important in high school to have, good friends and good officials with you that are able to do that. And I don't know if that happens as much at the higher levels and the professional levels because, A, they may not know you as well. And everybody's there to try to get really to the Super Bowl, right? So I'm looking out for myself first and foremost, the higher levels I go, I think. That's probably the difference, I think, in my mind a little bit.
Do you think that there is, like, at the high school level, this isn't your livelihood, obviously, and it's obviously not something that you're not even you're not making a bunch of money doing it just in period, right? Like,
no,
an NFL referee makes six figures. Those guys make, like, I think at minimum, like $250,000 a year just to referee. So,
that's fair.
Which they're not even doing full time, right?
Yep.
So that's it's a different scenario, but let's just say you probably don't feel a lot of stress about, I guess, keeping your job when it comes to the refereeing, right? Whereas those guys, do you think that there's an element with them, like well, obviously the stakes are higher in general, but just that pressure. I mean, are they feeling that much more pressure than a guy like you is?
Sure, because everybody that's gone that far has gone that far because they want to. That's their desire, right? They want to get to the top. They want to go to the Super Bowl, and they're getting paid handsomely for it. And let's be honest, they're on TV. They get to go to these cool games. I mean, who wouldn't want to be on the field for those type of games? And you can lose your job doing that. That probably almost looks worse, right? You were in and then you got out because you were not good enough. So I think that definitely is a part of it. With high school, it's not so much that I'm going to lose my job. It's that I'm not going to be able to go further down the playoff tournament road, if that makes sense. So that's really the only hierarchy where referees are kind of differentiated in the state of Iowa, I guess, at least at the high school level.
Do you feel like I remember listening to Ross and Travis one morning.
Yeah.
And I called in the next day because it pissed me the fuck off. But there was a guy that called in who was a ref. I hope it wasn't you.
No.
Okay, good. So there was a guy that called in who was a high school official, and he was talking about, I don't remember what the topic was, but he was speaking in defense of officials, obviously. And he said something along the lines of, well, so, some of us, this is how this is what we do now to compete. And that just triggered me because you're not fucking competing. You're officiating. Like that right there. That was a slip of the tongue. That was one of those, I've suppressed these thoughts in the back of my mind because I know they're fucked up. And I accidentally just said it out loud. Like, I feel like there's too much. It's just like, I just can't get away from the cop comparison. Like, it's just the same as that adrenaline junkie cop that passes all the tests because he just knows how to answer the questions.
I'm trying to think how I answer this. I wouldn't say I'm out there to compete. I'm out there because I love the game. Whether, you played the game or watched it with your dad growing up or something, right? You had a love for that game. I'm not going to go do lacrosse because I don't know shit about lacrosse. I think there has to be a love for the game in there. And basketball was kind of a thing that I loved growing up. And so that's kind of how I got involved in that. That doesn't mean I don't love football or baseball. This is just kind of the path I took. But as far as competing,
can't you just go watch basketball games? Like what makes you want to be the guy that's telling people that they did something wrong?
So I coached. I see your point, but I coached for like 3 years before I did this, and then that coaching position wasn't available anymore, and a buddy asked me like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" And I'll be honest, I hadn't ever thought about it in my life, but it was kind of a way to stay involved in that game at the time from a different perspective. And as a coach, I'll tell you, I was an asshole. I hated the officials, and so like, why not try to be better? And here we are. This is year 20.
So that was like the same reason that I coached my son's basketball team at Salvation Army, like when he was in 3rd grade, because I was comfortable coaching baseball. I coached all kinds of baseball. That was fine. But the basketball I wasn't as comfortable with. But I watched his coaches the first 2 years and was like, well, I could do better than these fucking guys. So that's what I did.
That's virtually every dad with kids that play sports, pretty much, right?
Well, yes and no, because I was smart enough. Once he started playing for his school, I backed off. I coached him in Little League, and like he was going through Sadell. So I would talk to the high school coaches a little bit about what they were teaching, what they wanted, so that I could impart that onto my teams or whatever. But once he was putting a Sadell shirt on, I sat in the bleachers and didn't say shit.
Yep.
Like, I felt like that was the right thing to do. Also, those levels would have commanded too much of my time. I was on the road doing stand-up. So, I mean, it's just not viable. But go ahead.
I will say this. I kind of want to circle back to the point about competitiveness, maybe. There's really not a way, if you're bad at the high school level, for me to not, or for an official to not have games, if that makes sense. So there's really not a lot of punishment if I'm a terrible official.
Because there's not enough guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so why do you I think that a lot of officials think that the shortage is because of people yelling from the stands and parents and yada yada yada, and people having these overzealous opinions of how good their kids are and all that. But I don't feel like that's why. I don't feel like that's what the shortage is. I mean, is that where you're at? It's probably not the only factor. I don't think that it doesn't play a role.
What do you, before I answer, what do you think the reason is? Why the shortage?
I think that the shortage is more so just societally, the less emphasis as people are growing up now. The less volunteer portion, like Little League is pretty much dead. When I played Little League, somebody's dad was the umpire half the time wearing the fucking Enrico Palazzo thing. So like, yeah, I umpired like that even.
Yeah.
The coaches had to umpire games, and it does give you a little bit better of an idea. Fucking calling balls and strikes is hard. That's not an easy thing to do, Yep. So like on that level, I think that, so therefore less people even do it to begin with. Like, like my dad was an umpire that we loved when he would umpire, because it was like he acted like a major league umpire. He was really loud. He fucking punched people out. Oh yeah, he was into it,
Yeah.
And that started with him as a coach having to umpire games. And then there was another guy who actually had the blue shirt and the patch and shit. So like he went and took classes and got the blue shirt and the patch, and so I think there's less of that happening. I think that I really do think that there's less emphasis on taking these things seriously. Also, just the fun levels aren't there anymore. Everything has to be organized and competitive. Tournaments, everything's tournament.
Travel ball, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's every sport. It's not
Which
even
ramps up though, but that ramps up the intensity and ramps up, I think, some of the things that you just said you don't think contribute to it.
No, I don't think that they don't. It's not that I don't think they're not a contributing factor. I don't think they're the number. I don't think it's number one.
Okay.
I think that number one is I guess if you were to look at a pie chart, maybe it would be number one. Like it'd be the biggest portion of the pie chart as an individual thing. But I think that it would be, it'd be like a quarter of the pie chart where a whole bunch of other stuff makes up the rest.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So like, I also think that there is more, people are more aware of, like red flags in personalities.
Yep.
Like, so we're less celebratory, like, because I really do think it takes a certain kind of personality to pursue authority,
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
And so like when you're pursuing authority on purpose, that's just not as attractive as it used to be.
Sure.
I think less people want to be in charge of things.
Okay, I'm actually going to agree with you on most of these points. I don't know what the pie chart looks like.
Yeah.
But you bring up very good points. I would say I hadn't really thought of the Tyrion side of things. But I think you're right. Whether that's with a church or a local group, city group, I think that probably all has lessened over time for sure. Some things that get people into officiating is it's kind of, money, a job.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we'll try to get college kids involved because, hey, come ref for the weekend on a Saturday at a youth tournament and you might come home with $500.
Yeah. And
that's
a weekend. That's a great part-time gig. But
Right. I also think societally, my daughters are probably a perfect example. I grew up on a farm. Every dollar I had to work for.
Mm.
And frankly, my daughters get pretty much money for not doing much. That's just kind of the way things have gone.
And you can decide if that's better. We can all do the back in my day, but
right.
Fucking, my great grandpa had to shit in an outhouse, and does that mean we should just ignore indoor plumbing?
Yes.
No.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, shit gets better. So
right.
That's where I don't know where to.
It's a part of that pie, right?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
I think video, social media is a negative. It's part of that pie chart. Because as you're aware, just talking about the Jamar Chase thing, we're slowing that down. We're trying to read lips. We can probably almost read the lips.
Mm-hmm.
Every single play today is scrutinized on social media. And that's hard because I think most officials would admit the games are hard. The split-second decisions are hard. And trying to do it live when you have all these other things going on and, his foot was in or he wasn't or he controlled or he didn't, it's hard.
Yeah.
And so when you're going to yell at me with no knowledge of the rules, you don't know what I'm, giving up to be here, blah, 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 that sucks.
Yeah.
So I think social media is part of that. And then I'd say parents and people are also a problem. And that kind of goes back to the video aspect of it. But, even in the NFL, we're watching along and Dean Blandino's on there telling us whether this call is right or wrong. Like they're getting live
Real time.
rule book stuff.
Yeah.
So we all think, oh, well, we know the game because we're listening, and we got Dean Blandino and blah, blah, or Gene Steratore on with us, right? So we all know the game. But I guarantee, the 5 plays that we see the most of in the NFL or in a basketball game, if you go into the actual rule book and look at the other 95% of the plays, nobody knows shit. So it's hard to the perception of we know the rules as society versus do we actually know the rules? Have I ever looked at a rule book for any of these sports? I think that's part of it. So that that kind of goes back to the parenting and people being assholes, I think is just kind of all part of that. So I think you're right. I think there's several pieces of this pie. It's just a challenging profession to be a part of.
Yeah. And at the same time, like, it's weird because I think we all, with all professions, we're not a part of whatever profession and we decide what they signed up for.
Right.
Like, a comedian getting heckled. Well, You signed up for that. Motherfucker, no, I didn't sign up for that. I signed up to come up here and do my jokes, and you're not letting me. But that's where you got to be careful because, and I'm sure this is something that you can relate to. Like I tell younger comics all the time, when somebody right up front is not necessarily bothering you, but they're being a distraction. They're doing whatever, right? What you got to keep in mind as the performer is you are likely the only person that can hear them. If they're being quiet enough, because they're in the front row, that means their back is to everyone else. So outside of a couple tables right there, nobody out there can hear what they're saying. So if you go at them right away, now you look like a guy that can't handle your job.
Yeah.
To the rest of the audience. Now you lose them all. Yep. But if you ignore them long enough to where you can tell the rest of the crowd is annoyed with them, now you don't even have to be creative. Now you can just go, shut the fuck up, you drunk cunt, and everybody cheers. Like, you don't even have to be creative. And I imagine officiating, I'm sure you probably have conversations with younger officials along those lines. Like, do you guys have those meetings? Like, you have those conversations before games where you're like, listen, you're going to have to ignore this to a certain point.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up Sam Anker, who's one of my partners.
I knew you were going to bring up Sam.
He's on our Three Blind Wrestler.
He's a fellow sociopath?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome.
So he's our young guy.
And a cyclone.
Yes.
Fucking okay, so a stupid sociopath.
Not this year.
Man, one more he's got one more box to check and he can run for president.
I know. So I've been doing this 20 years, and I think he's at year 8. So there was a time he was kind of coming up and young, and trying to help him through that process of getting to where he needs to get. And there was a time where he, maybe he probably saw me talking to somebody in the crowd, because to your point, same thing with the heckler in the front row. I'm going to make eye contact with an asshole, and usually that's enough. And they're like, oh.
Yeah. Oh shit, he can hear me. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And to your point, the crowd kind of knows what's going on too.
Right.
But if it becomes too much, I'm like, usually the AD is supposed to be the person that's in charge, right? That's supposed to take care of that for us. If they're not there, and a lot of times they're not, I'm just going to point and say, you're gone. Right. So I had done that somewhere, and Sam kind of, was young and watching. And so he started talking to the crowd as well. And so I had to kind of back him down. I'm like, stay out of the crowd. I will deal with that. You just focus on getting better at the game stuff. And now, he's done it long enough where he can do both of those things. And he's gotten a lot better at that. Like he'll pick out somebody in the crowd. He might say something to them on the passing, and that shuts them up. But, we're not tossing people left and right, but we definitely have our ways of communicating with those people without everybody in the gym knowing it. So
go ahead.
Let me ask you about hostile crowds, because I would imagine you went to the same gyms over and over and over again. You know some of the crowds, you know how they react or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for that, knowing that you're going to go into a crowd and you've had issues there before? And do you sometimes put that in the back of your mind and go, okay, this could be a problem and I need to look for this? Or do you try to go in independently and say every crowd is going to be different and I need to start from scratch?
I'm going to take it a little further. I think crowds and coaches and or players can all be in that mix, Chris, where again, I think we're human and our past experiences are hard to shake. So, you know, you've been with us on a road trip where we're going to talk about the game on the way. And then for an hour before we get there, an hour in advance, and for, you know, good half hour, 45 minutes of that while we're getting dressed, we're going to pregame the things that are we need to do on a nightly basis and the things that we need to watch for that might be unique to that situation, such as a crowd or a coach. And I will say over time where I have had maybe a bad relationship with a coach and I'm dreading going to a location and we pregame that, and then I don't hear a peep from that person that night. So it's good to prepare, but I think you're right. I think we need to remember that everybody's human, and even though we may have had a bad situation in the past, doesn't always mean it's going to happen. So prepping as much as we can, and then taking all of that information and doing our job the way we should, hopefully takes care of that, you know. But, you know, if we've had a situation in school in the past, I will tell the AD before the game, hey, you know, I need you to pay attention to your crowd tonight because of X, Y, or Z or whatever. But I try to make each thing independent as much as possible while prepping for the past, if that makes sense.
Yep. Cooter was out there with a pitchfork last year.
Right. We got met in the parking lot at Sadell.
Yeah. Some fucking crazy fucking bearded dad. He was just his kid wasn't even playing football. He was just mad at us for being referees. Just decided to wait in the parking lot. Yeah. Okay, so you're I got a good story for you. This is a story about me getting kicked out of a Little League game.
That's really surprising to me, Bill.
This was honestly, I'm telling you right now, I was not in the wrong here. This is so. Do you ever run into which you're not when you were coaching?
Mm-hmm.
What ages did you coach? Did you coach younger kids in the like 9-10-year-olds?
Well,
at
my basketball coaching to start was freshman team, and then I help with JV and varsity. But then my daughters have come up through basketball, softball, and I've coached them and all those things too. So I've kind of done high school and youth.
Perfect. So let's even freshman is a good example. You are coaching, and at this time, I'm assuming by the time your daughters were playing, you'd been reffing for a while.
Yes.
Okay. So now you're coaching, and the officials, of course, you're probably being a little more empathetic as an official yourself, but
sometimes
it's extra frustrating when you obviously know the game better than them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so that was baseball for me, because this was when my son was 10. So it was 9 and 10-year-olds, right? And I'm the head coach. I'm coaching third base, and you know, I've always been I went through high school. I played a little bit of college baseball, but like I was serious about baseball. Like rules, the little nuances, unwritten rules, You know, like when I was in college, we were playing Burlington, and we were down by 10 runs, and I played third base. This dude stole third base when we were down by 10 runs, and I threw.
I hope you tagged him hard.
Yeah, I threw a forearm into his chest.
Yeah.
So shit like that, right?
Yep,
So I know the game. I'm serious about this shit.
Yes.
And obviously these are 10-year-olds, so it's not that serious. But I'm trying to coach them to be better and try to help build some self-esteem. Like it's part of my thing. And I had this kid on my team. Just happened to be named Braden. So Braden had I bet he had struck out 10 times in a row in like the last 2-3 games. I mean, the kid was he wasn't a great ball player, but he wasn't unserviceable. Every once in a while you go, holy shit, he caught that. Like he was all right. And 10-year-olds now at the little league level are not the 10-year-olds when I was 10. I mean, they're not even close. It's crazy how bad they are. Like when we were 10 years old, it was like we could all do everything.
And we wore jeans.
Yeah, no shit. Because the fucking infield was crushed brick instead of dirt.
Yes.
And we liked it. We loved it. But anyway, so I'm coaching third base, and this Braden had struck out, had to have been 10 times in a row. Well, he works it. It's a full count, and this pitch is chest high. I mean, like chin high, right? A little outside. And he checks his swing. And it was so obviously a check swing. And the ref called him out. And you could see him just he was so mad that he didn't get on base. Like he knew it was a ball, and he did everything he'd been taught. I always taught that, get going, trust your hands, and like he did everything right. And you could see him just deflate, and he's hanging his head, walking back to the dugout, right? And so I just clap. I go, it's all right, Brett. It was a bad call. It's all right. And that was it. I swear to God. And I was so nonchalant about it. It's all right, Braden. It was a bad call. Don't worry about it. Just trying to fucking throw the kid. This one's not your fault. This one's not you. You know what I mean? And this fucking umpire stops everything, takes his mask off, walks up to me in the third. You can't. And I'm like, I'm talking to my kid. Like, nobody's saying anything to you at all. You shouldn't even be listening to what I'm saying to him. I'm not. If I'm being abusive to my kid or something, that's one thing. Like, I didn't say shit. Like, you shouldn't even be listening to me, right? So that ends. That's over. He tells me it's bad sportsmanship, and okay, whatever, fine. So they get the third out. We go in the dugout, and our kids are going back out on the field. They're doing the fucking warm-up thing, and I go up to the umpire, and I apologize to him. And I'm like, hey, man, I just want you to know I wasn't trying to show you up or anything. It's like that kid's really been struggling, and I was trying to kind of build him, make him kind of – and he goes, well, you can't say it was a bad call when it wasn't a bad call.
Uh-oh.
So I just go, I go, first of all, it was a bad call, but I'm not here to argue with you about that. I'm trying to tell you I wasn't trying to make you look bad. That's all. Well, you can't argue a judgment, dude. I'm not arguing any call. And I turned to the crowd, the parents, and I'm like, did you guys hear me argue any call? Did I argue a call? And then finally he goes, you're this close. And I'm like, to what? And he throws me out of the game. And took everything I had not to take third base with me as I went to the parking lot.
You might as well have got your money's worth at that point.
Well, I told myself they're 10. Don't take third base. They're 10.
Okay, a couple things I want to address. I told you we're mostly type A.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between being type A and having a huge ego.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not a fan of egos in officiating at any level. Number 2, being sensitive.
Yeah.
Officiating is probably not for you.
Yeah.
Because whether you're 100% by the book right about something, somebody's going to think you're wrong.
Right.
And if you take offense to that, man, you gotta focus on high level, not that dipshit.
Yeah, my dad gave me a great term that was an old baseball term. He said rabbit ears. He's like, this guy's got rabbit ears.
Yep.
You know, and
That's
was
perfect.
that was always the thing. Like,
yep,
you're not supposed to have rabbit ears.
Right.
And see, I always knew that. And this guy, my thing is, this guy was getting paid to umpire. You know, he had to have a patch. He had to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if you're only getting your $50 a game. You're not a volunteer. So I get to question you on some level. I get to have some type of scrutiny as long as I don't cross the line. And I felt like in that situation, I didn't cross the line. Like, you don't tee a guy up for just saying that was a bad call.
Right. I think you got your point across in a perfect way.
That's what I thought too.
And the game should have moved on. And he should have been like, yep, okay, I fucked that up.
Great. You better fucking play this highlight, Chris. Did you mark that?
I did. Yes, right now I marked it. Yes.
That probably gets you people's choice next year.
Out of all of the interactions he could have with the ref, the one time he gets kicked out was when he was a nice guy.
Well, that's the thing.
That's what's ironic about that entire story.
Because I'm never a nice guy as a spectator. As a coach, that was different because I didn't want to cost my team anything. So in that situation, I was fucking royally pissed off because I didn't feel like I did anything wrong.
Yep.
I was just trying to build my kid up. Like,
so something we talked about, Bill, and Chris, you probably heard this. There's an art to officiating. And I think from my personal career, I feel like there's a certain amount of years or experiences or games that takes you to get the simple things down. Raising your hand for a foul, raising your hand for a violation, things like that, right? Mm-hmm. And then you get into really the next step is, after you know all the nuances and you know the rules, it's dealing with coaches, dealing with players. And I really feel that's an art. And there's a difference between, in my personal opinion, I think it's an art to get to that higher level of officiating where it's not just black and white. It's black and white. And what does the situation call for? Yeah. And to your point in that situation, why have a bad call against a kid that even the umpire at that point probably knows, not a great player, I'm going to throw the kid a bone, right? I mean, isn't that what we're there for, especially at the youth level? And even to some extent, the high school level is like, you got to remember this is a game and kids want to have fun.
Yeah.
Don't make this a horrible experience for them. And let's have a little bit of common sense when it comes to these things.
I love that you said that because that's what I always said in like my parents' meetings and stuff at the beginning was like our job. And I believe that it was the umpire's job too. And he failed at it. Our job is for these kids to sign up next year.
Yep.
Like if they don't sign up next year, we did something wrong.
Yep.
Or they just found out they didn't love it. But that's a kid right there that I don't think he played baseball after that season, to be honest. He might have played one more year, but
I mean, and there's kids that come in at the end of games sometimes, that maybe they're handicapped, maybe they haven't played, maybe, whatever the situation is. And probably that's our favorite part of the game. Let them, if they want to walk down the whole damn court, I don't care. I want them to have a moment and enjoy the game and get cheered for and the crowd go wild and all those things. Like there's time and place for the rules, and that is not one of those times and places.
100%. Okay, now here's that brings up a great question. Or is this even a question? A statement, something that I think that this is another part of officiating in general that I don't like. The rules are supposed to be the rules. Cross the board, that's it. Baseball is a perfect example, and this is why I love the automated strike zone, because the strike zone is the strike zone. You don't get to have your own strike zone.
Yeah.
This is the rules. Like, for years, this umpire likes them low. This umpire likes them high. This umpire will give you the outside corner, but not the inside corner. No. Both of the corners are in the same fucking spot.
Right.
The letters are in the same spot. The fucking way, all that stuff. You don't get to have your own strike zone. That's the kind of shit I don't like. And I'll give you an example of it in basketball. Iowa fucking State is a perfect fucking dog shit example of this. We're just going to foul the shit out of everybody because they can't call everything. And we're going to get a reputation as being a defensive team so that every time we play, we can just fucking foul you the whole game and dare the refs to foul out our entire team because they can't.
Yep.
I say, fuck that. You foul out the entire team. A foul's a foul. Why do the rules change when fucking Bob Huggins is the coach? Why do the rules change?
I would go even further than Iowa State. I would just say that the NCAA tournament becomes rough, right? I'm with you, and I think we try to set what our parameters are going to be early in the game. We always say make the first one a good one, and let's set a tone of what we are going to call tonight. So to your point,
Make the first whistle a good whistle.
Correct. And if we're gonna, we know coming in, because we've scouted, that Iowa State is handsy.
Let's physical team. No,
physical.
You foul out, all of you.
Right.
These are fouls.
Then we better
coach team. That's what they are. They're a well defensive coach team.
Go ahead.
I'm going to ignore that for a second.
Fucking playing prison ball.
But we're going to set that tone right out of the gate, and this is what we're going to call. It is not our job to adjust. It is their job to adjust.
Yeah.
So to your point, in theory, yep, they could foul out given what we try to do.
Yeah. But that never happens. That's why I just want just one time. It doesn't even have to be Iowa State. It could be West Virginia. Well, not so much now because DeVries is there. But when Bob Huggins, who's probably my most hated, I hate Bob Huggins so much that I rooted for Iowa State to beat. That's how much I hate Bob Huggins. But West Virginia was a perfect example under Bob Huggins. All they did was foul you the whole game. And just, I mean, the announcers half the time are even saying it. Well, they can't call everything. You can't. You shouldn't be able to do that.
And then if you had called everything, then you had to deal with Bob, right?
Yeah.
So there's that.
Fuck
second.
him. I hope his fucking defibrillator fails. I don't fucking care. Good job, Bob. Guess what, Bob? You're out too. Your whole team fouled out. You got 2 technical fouls. Iowa State won by forfeit because they had 4 fouls on everybody instead of 5. Like, I just want to see it one time. I just want one game to actually get called like that.
Yeah.
So they'll stop that shit. Because I can't stand that. That's not basketball to me. You're not, like, they talk about how guys wouldn't have survived the 90s and they show the Pistons clothesline and Michael Jordan. You ain't supposed to fucking clothesline people in basketball.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, come the fuck on, man.
I think a lot of times, though, you're right. I'm with you 100% on that. I think a lot of times at the college level and up, they talk about, though, what you can play through. And that's not really fair, but that's a truth. Michael Jordan could play through that and still put it on the Pistons back then, right? And that's tough, especially when you have a great player. We've talked about this where even with Caitlin Clark, right? Ship, we just talked about this when Kristen was on. we probably allowed more contact against her because she was able to play through it.
Mm.
So there's a little bit of that.
And now you know why her entire life she's going, it's a fucking foul. What the fuck? What the fuck? The whole game.
Yep.
And see, that's not right. Like, that's bullshit. A foul is a foul. It's the same for everybody. Like, I can't, like, you can't have it both ways. You know what I mean?
It's a hard profession.
Yeah,
I feel you.
I won't say that it's not easy. I won't say it's easy. That'd be a really asshole thing to do. And I do get amazed on a regular basis by the calls that they get right.
Yeah.
You know, and I find myself a lot, especially, I mean, I've watched every Indiana Fever game this year, and I find myself a lot, and during Iowa games too. What the fuck? Fucking fuck. That's not who the fuck fouled him. And then they show the replay. Oh, okay, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but more so in football, like guys getting their feet in, catch, same time. I mean, those bang plays like that, getting those right is pretty amazing sometimes. Now,
well, and as a baseball person, I don't know if you follow like Pitching Ninja or Umpire Scorecard on Twitter.
No, not really. I will just get frustrated, but I do.
Well, they actually
our boy Pat Hoberg had a perfect game a couple years ago.
Yeah. But even bad umpires, Angel Hernandez, right?
Yeah.
Terrible. If you look at like his scorecard, he's still scoring like 90% of the calls right. So I don't think we probably celebrate the right calls enough.
Sure.
We just focus on the bad calls, and Angel made it hard to think of anything other than bad calls. But you know what I mean.
He had so many.
Well, then you have Joe West is a good example of one of those cocksucking fucking attitude motherfuckers, dude. He just
ego.
Oh, ego, perfect. And I think you're right. You clued me into something that I didn't think about before. Like I was going when you said that type A thing, like I'm right away thinking about de-escalate, fuck that shit. But when you say ego, there's a difference between type A and ego. I never thought of it that way. And that's I think you're right. And I think ego is those guys that talk that shit.
Yeah.
Those the guys that do the exaggerated charge calls and they.
Oh my God! Like we bought a ticket to watch you.
The strike calls where you're.
Yeah, they know the
crowd. Shoulder out when you're trying to call a strike.
Yeah, like it's fucking WWE. Like all of a sudden.
I think I know where Ben's going with this.
Crowd goes wild. You fucking motherfucker.
You guys aren't wrong. Those are all things that have to do potentially with ego. However, as officials, we do have to have fun sometimes. And so we have this thing when we have an and one, sometimes we'll swing through it as hard as we can and whoop, we'll call it. And the louder that we can do it, and literally the only two people in the gym that know are my other two partners. It's like a contest with them is like, look what I just did.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we used to do a lot of times. Like there'd be three of us on the road, and we would all have to bring up a subject. We'd all have to do like one time we used to make fun of the round guy all the time.
Yeah.
There was there was a long time where the guy just never wrote a joke for like 20 years. It seemed like that. I mean, that was like the running joke. He was in on it, by the way. It was just this.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to disrespect or insult him. I'm saying like, it was like this thing, like he just always did the same 15 minutes. Right. And, so we were on the road one time and we all had to do a round guy joke. Like, and we could all do it verbatim, fucking.
That's awesome.
And so we're all making each other laugh, and then the crowd, they don't know.
They don't know.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So yeah, we did little shit like that all the time.
I guarantee having some of those crews, even at MLB, NBA level, are having a beer afterwards and going like, "Man, I really sold that one, didn't I?"
Oh yeah. Or how about the guy that fucked up the dude's perfect game? He was just crying for fucking. I felt so bad for that. That's one time I actually felt bad for an umpire.
Yeah, that was Galarraga, I think, right?
Yeah, and it was and he just
I think like the
control.
next day he apologized pregame to him or something like that.
Oh yeah,
right?
He was crying in his press conference.
Yeah, and that brings another point is like we're reviewing this stuff, and especially at the NFL, MLB, NBA level, like they're getting an iPad or a computer or something sent to them every night with every single play that is questionable at all, right? High school, it's a little different where I have to go work and find that video and remember, I want to look at that play or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, we're all trying to get better and not miss those calls, but it happens.
Okay, so here's something. There's two calls, two scenarios in a basketball game that I will usually lose my fucking mind, and maybe you can educate me.
I'll try.
One of them is the nuances of which I guess you're probably gonna laugh at me for saying this terminology anyway over the back, right? Which is not an actual thing, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's basically based on contact or no contact, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a
push.
So this is a judgment on whether or not someone has position, or so like, okay, you see it in the WNBA a lot because nobody can fucking jump. So like,
well, and they're not 6'10".
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're not playing above the rim.
Yep.
But you'll constantly see someone just because they're taller can just get up over somebody. Now, when someone has position and they're going up for that, and this person's arm hits them on the top of the head, that is not a foul. Or is it?
Well, I sure would think it is.
I think so too.
You can't punish height.
Right.
But if there's contact when the taller person is going for that, especially on somebody with position, that
when
causes
that person jumps, right? Yeah. When the person who's got position jumps, right? Okay, so now,
unless the person with position jumps into a player that also has position behind them.
Okay, that's what I was getting ready to ask. Okay, so
if we can both have position.
But how do you have? I thought only one. I thought only the person in front can technically have position.
I have a right to my space where I'm standing vertically to the ceiling, essentially.
Okay, so what happens? So now it's a judgment call. If this person jumps a little bit this way and this one jumps a little bit this way,
yeah, that's a tough play. So think about this play, Bill. I have an offensive player dribble under the basket. I have a defender kind of, let's say, at the backboard, and that offensive person, jumps back to try to make that bank shot.
Yeah.
That's a foul on the offense. So similar type thinking, even though the offensive player was there, they created that contact into a player that had position on the floor.
But that's most of the time probably going to be a no call, isn't it?
Depends on how egregious it is.
Yeah. I mean, the whole verticality thing, is that even a fucking word, by the way? Did we make that?
Yeah. No, that's good.
So the whole verticality thing, like you said, somebody comes baseline. This person's basically standing directly underneath the backboard, right?
Yep.
And this person comes baseline, jumps this way, to try to hit a layup. And this person who's vertical kind of goes like that. I feel like the majority of the time that's gonna not be a call. Like the person coming off baseline would almost have to put their shoulder into him.
But that's a judgment, right? Because again, that player has a right to that space. So was he able to get the basket by creating that space? If so, we probably need to go the other way. If he was going to get that basket either way, probably pass on that contact, right? But that's the hard thing about basketball is not all contact is a foul. And that's the hardest thing is what level of contact is a foul.
Okay, so why? Yeah. Okay, so if not all contact is a foul, give me an example of contact that's not a foul.
Incidental contact.
What classifies as incidental? Like two people diving for a loose ball.
Maybe, yeah. As long as nobody has dove on top of the other, we're just going into each other, diving for that. Maybe our arms hit, whatever. As long as there's nothing egregious there, that's incidental contact. And I mean, I think if you think about the game of basketball, it's a pretty physical game, whether it's called or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of incidental contact, even when we drive. Maybe, supposed to, if we leave a hand on, that's a foul. But how many times do we talk about hand checks? Or, maybe we make a layup and there's some contact after, but the ball went in. Let's pass on that. Keep this, a lot of time coaches want flow. If it doesn't affect a shot or a play, let's just pass and move on. So again, that kind of goes back to that art a little bit I was talking about.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out level contact, because not all contact is gonna be a foul, and it might be different on different players as well, right? So,
well, like you're watching Caitlin Clark, for example, and whoever's guarding her when she's got the ball, like whoever's her on-ball defender at any given time, has their hands all over her, like constantly.
Yep.
And she'll do one of these. She'll go by somebody and do one of these, and they'll call an offensive foul. Yep. Even though that girl was riding her all the way up court, hands on her the whole time.
It was incidental.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So that was incidental, and because Caitlin did this on purpose to get her fucking hands off of her, like
I'm not going to argue with this, because I watch the same games, and I would say the level of officiating that I see isn't what I expect the WNBA should have.
I would agree with you there. Like a great example is the fucking guy that gave her the tee for hitting the pad.
Yeah.
Like you could tell right away he thought she was mad at him. That was an ego tee right there.
Yep.
And then she's like, what the fuck? She's mad at her. It's so obvious she's mad at herself.
But I could think of high school officials that would do that same thing.
Yeah.
Where I probably wouldn't. So again, that kind of goes back to.
Yeah, and so how do you?
Okay, we got to wrap up. So this is the last question.
How do you even blanket that? You know what I mean? That's where I don't like that. I wish we could eliminate that human element.
Yeah,
and I feel like it would take pressure off of the actual officials too, or get rid of them.
I think there's a lot of officials who would look at me and say, "Well, that has to be a technical foul every time because she reacted unsporting."
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But as an athlete and as a coach in the past, why can't I have emotion because I missed a shot?
Yeah. Why and why do you as the ref get to make an emotional call?
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay, Chris, I know we got to wrap it up, but I had one more thing.
Okay, real quick.
This is the one thing that'll drive me nuts all the time. So there's a foul under the basket, but the fucking ref at half court calls it, and not the ref that's under the basket. Why? I see it multiple times, almost every game too that I watch. Like
in our pregame, we have certain areas of the court that are our responsibility depending on where we are. I don't want to be fishing in somebody else's pond, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
Unless it's so egregious that we all see it from 100 meters away that it has to be called. But even then, I'm like, I think if you look at the percentages, we talk about this a lot. If you look at the percentages from calling a call from really far away, obviously your odds of getting that correct are way less than if you're 3 feet from it. So it is part of our pregame, part of our teaching is that try to call what is in front of you, because I'm trusting you to do your job in your area. And maybe there's a reason you're not calling that. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Right on. Okay. So before we go, if you had to give any advice to any other, maybe a younger official, just about how to let this affect something maybe you do to keep things from affecting your mental health in a negative way. Your experiences, bad games, whatever, arguments with the coach, whatever. Is there anything you could kind of just blanket, like impart on younger officials to keep their mental health in check?
I think
positive?
The main thing I would say is have a support group, whether that's your crew. Like with me, I have my 3 guys, and then I have, there's probably 10, 15 other officials that I talk to quite a bit during the season that we're bouncing videos off of and experiences off of. And we've all worked same games, same coaches. So it's good to have that support group, have somebody to talk to rather than just take that home and just stew on it and be like, screw it, I'm quitting this game. I don't want to do it again because that happened. Well, turns out every official has had that type of situation. So go talk to them about it and how they moved on and laugh about it, right? And, we a lot of times, especially on Fridays or Saturdays, if we have games, we'll get a text chain going and we'll go have food and beers after a Friday night game and meet a bunch of other officials and just have a good time and talk and catch up about, man, what happened in the last week and that type of thing. So I think the people that are around you that do the same type of thing need to be your support, basically. So highly recommend that.
All right.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, man.
Hey, I loved it. Thank you guys for having me.
This was a lot of fun. Check out Ben and Jim and Sam on 3 Blind Refs. They go every 2 weeks. I think they might have an episode this week.
I sure hope so.
And then make sure you go rate, subscribe to all the rest of the 3 Beers Media podcast. Shout out, thank you to Revelton Distilling Company and Green Beret Realty and Andrew Downs at AKC Marketing. Billy, thanks again for tonight.
Yeah, everybody give a beautiful view to listen to if you get a chance.
That's right. And with that, we are out of here.